Yeah, but even I want to make sure when is my
I have to ask the Raftul, the one with the white hair. Sorry. Bahrain would like to know the order. Yeah.
perfect?
How do you do? Nice to meet you.
I think Esther.
Thank you.
I have to take charge of this.
Oh, you're
Before we start our session, we have an important announcement. We must keep in mind that COVID-19 is still present in some places. We ask you to take precautions so that everyone can safely enjoy WUF11 to its full extent. It is our responsibility to keep each other safe and ensure that WUF11 is a pleasant experience. In case you have any symptoms of COVID-19, we ask you to be cautious and self-isolate. If you need medical help, dial 112, as indicated on the back of your WUF11 badge. Kindly note the session will be closed for in-person attendance once maximum seating capacity is reached.
take your seats. A very good afternoon to you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Ministerial Roundtable. I'd like to first draw your attention to a few housekeeping rules. We have this room from 4 o'clock. It's now 10 past 4, and the room will be closed at 6:30. So for purposes of concisement and allowing everybody to have an opportunity to express themselves, I'll be a little bit harsh as regards timekeeping, with each presentation taking 3 or so minutes. But before we begin the session, distinguished guests, let me draw your attention to an important announcement. We must keep in mind that COVID-19 is still with us. And in order to safeguard our lives, our guests' lives, all the gentlemen and ladies that have participated at WUF11, we ask you to be conscious, and in any way, if you are feeling unwell, please dial the number 112, which is it's indicated at the back of your badge, and you'll be able to seek medical assistance. This is a huge conference, and we know that COVID-19 cases are likely to come up. And so, allow me to begin the session. We will begin now with a comment and a presentation by the Honourable Secretary of State and the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy in Poland, Honourable Małgorzata Jarosinska-Jedinak. Welcome, Honourable.
Thank you very much, dear Executive Director, dear President, dear Ministers. Welcome in the Ministerial Roundtable, one of the most important sessions during the World Urban Forum. It's a good platform to speak about implementation of the new urban agenda in particular countries. The Polish government pays great attention to the sustainable development of urban areas and implementation of the new urban agenda. The most important Polish strategic document, National Urban Policy till 2030, was presented yesterday by Minister Grzegorz Puda during National Urban Policies Roundtable. In view of the current and growing challenges faced by cities in Europe and globally around the world, it's necessary to strengthen the capacity of cities to plan and respond to different types of crises by increasing their resilience. Cities are the most vulnerable areas as regards climate changes. To prepare cities to face those challenges, Polish government proposed an innovative and pioneering approach in a form of urban adaptation plans that covered 44 of the largest Polish cities. The main purpose of adaptation plans was to assess the vulnerability of cities to climate changes and to help them in planning adaptation measures individually for each city. Cities participating in this project prepared their own documents. We are currently working on solutions that would enable cities to implement the proposed measure in the adaptation plan. For us in Poland, also revitalization is one of the most important elements of the local development process. For several years, new revitalization has taken place within a legal and programming framework. In Poland and perhaps also in other parts of the world, a special attention should be paid to small and medium-sized towns that face a range of environmental, economic, social, and institutional problems. To face these challenges, Polish government launched a local development program. Its aims is to strengthen social and economic cohesion by improving the quality of life for all residents of medium and small towns, including disadvantaged groups. 1/4 of the Polish cities applied for the program. In the end, the 29 best projects were chosen for implementation and funding. I believe that these projects will contribute to the implementation of the new urban agenda. Dear Ministers, World Urban Forum in Katowice is an important step towards the review of the way of the new urban agenda implementation. I wish you a good discussion, even if WUF is not a legislative meeting. I believe that all of us will express informal declarations of faster implementation of the new urban agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Honourable Minister. We hear you. We hear the conversation about handling cities around crisis and the resilience that is required and adaptability of all cities so that we encompass and are more inclusive in our undertakings. Thank you. I'd now like to invite His Excellency Colin Vixen Kilapile, who is the President of Ecosoc. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for giving me the floor. Let me begin by greeting you all, Under Secretary General Maimuna Modsharif, the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Honourable Malgozata Jarosinka Jetnak, Secretary of State at the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy and Government, Plenipotentiary for the preparation of the WUF, Honourable Ministers and Deputy Ministers responsible for sustainable urban development, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon to address this Ministerial Roundtable of the 11th session of the World Urban Forum in my capacity as President of the UN Economic and Social Council, Ecosoc, as it has been mentioned. Let me begin by thanking our hosts, the city of Katowice and the government of Poland for organizing an outstanding session of the World Urban Forum. I wish to thank as well the Executive Director, Maimuna, with whom I've had the pleasure of working closely with her for the past year, and of course towards preparations for this World Urban Forum, but also in multiple other meetings that we have continued to hold during her visit to New York. Your Excellencies, I'm here as part of showing support for UN Habitat, sustainable urbanization and the new urban agenda, and to also use this opportunity to convey to you, Honourable Ministers, some very important messages. The first message I wanted to convey to you is that through the coordinated efforts with the President of the General Assembly, Ecosoc, myself, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, as heads of the key principal organs of the United Nations, we have succeeded in elevating sustainable urban development and the importance of the new urban agenda. This work began in February. Of course, there was much more going on before that, but the momentum built up in February 2022 with the issuance of the Secretary General's report of the quadrennial report on the implementation of the new urban agenda. The Secretary General's quadrennial report drew upon 25 national reports prepared by many of the governments represented here today, for which I'm very grateful for that. On 21 April 2022, I convened the Ecosoc special meeting on sustainable urbanization and the new urban agenda, which was held in New York. Drawing upon panel interventions from the ministers, mayors, civil society organizations, the Ecosoc member states considered urbanization from the perspective of inequality and UN reform, two issues I have prioritized through my tenure as president of Ecosoc. So 1 week later, on 28 April 2022, the President of the General Assembly convened the high-level meeting of the General Assembly to review progress on the implementation of the new urban agenda. 87 member states, including 45 ministers and senior government officials, delivered statements along with statements from the Group of 77 and China, which is the largest intergovernmental group in New York, the European Union, the African Group, and the ASEAN Group. These events bolstered the new urban agenda, as did the meetings of the regional forums for sustainable development, the World Assembly of Local and Regional Governments, and side events which were convened by private industry, professionals, and grassroots organizations during the week of the high-level meeting of the General Assembly. Your Excellencies, my second message is that some 40 member states in New York are sustaining the momentum created by Ecosoc and the General Assembly through the establishment of the Group of Friends of UN Habitat, Sustainable Urbanization, and the New Urban Agenda. Held earlier this month, the inaugural meeting of the Group of Friends was opened by His Excellency Abdullah Shahid, President of the General Assembly, and it included highly constructive interventions by the permanent representatives who attended, as well as by the Undersecretary General Maimouna Sharif. I am delighted that all members of the Group of Friends are committed to strengthening UN Habitat, raising awareness about the importance of sustainable urbanization, and accelerating the implementation of the new urban agenda. The group will serve as an intermediary between the General Assembly and the UN Secretariat. As co-founding chair, along with my colleague, the permanent representative of Slovakia, I am keen to ensure that the group looks after the health and well-being of UN Habitat. This will include ensuring fair consideration of requests by the Secretary General to increase the regular budget allocation to UN Habitat, and also the resolutions of the General Assembly on UN Habitat planned for later this year in the second committee of the General Assembly. Your Excellencies, let me conclude by taking this opportunity to join the appeal already made by the Executive Director to governments represented here and those who are not here today to really put UN Habitat on a short funding path. The organization, as you may already have been briefed by the Executive Director, lacks the human and financial resources to carry out a mandate that has been significantly elevated by the international community, including by the member states yourselves. We will do our part in New York through the Group of Friends, which I just mentioned. Please complement our efforts by working with your colleagues at Capital to ensure that this issue, especially of providing the necessary capacity to UN Habitat, is amplified. I wanted to thank you again and for this opportunity really to be present with you today, this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. A round of applause for the President of Ecosoc. and we take on board your support as a group of friends to ensure the health and well-being of UN Habitat and the member states. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and honourable members, we now know why we're here. It is due to the stewardship of the Under-Secretary General of UN Habitat and the Executive Director, Madam Maimouna Mood Sharif, that we're all here. May we please give her a round of applause as she opens the session. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, Your Excellency, Mr. Colin Kilapile, President of Ecosoc, Honourable Malgorzata Jorisinka Jeninak, Secretary of State at the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy and Government Plenipotentiary for preparation of the World Urban Forum, Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, distinguished delegates and representative colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of us here. Let me start by expressing my gratitude to all of you for accepting my invitation to attend the 11th session of the World Urban Forum in this vibrant city of Katowice in Poland. This is the first time that this global event is taking place in the Eastern European region. We are convinced that the interaction between participants from this region and from other regions will be dynamic and leads to a fruitful outcomes. I would like also to thank the Polish government for providing us with the opportunity to discuss how can jointly transform our cities for a better urban future. The forum is contributing to the implementation of the new urban agenda and the urban dimension of the Sustainable Development Goals, including Goal 11 of making cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. Honourable Ministers, we are assembled here today with particularly ideas on urban transformation. These ideas may vary from country to country, from region to region, but however, I believe we can all agree that cities as a built environment, providing a home for more than the half of humanity, have become the focal point of transformation in our common quest for sustainable pattern of development. Excellencies, as also mentioned by the President of Ecosoc, the President of United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Shahid, convened a high-level meeting to assess progress on the implementation of the new urban agenda on the 28th April 2022 in New York. 87 member states reaffirmed their commitments after 5 years from Quito to the implementation of the new urban agenda by submitting statements on progress achieved and statement also for them to way forward and action that we would like to take in each country. All statements were analysed to highlight action by the member state over the past 6 years to implement the new urban agenda and the commitment made on future action. And the report was just released 2 days ago. This can be grouped, I would like to share with you, under 6 thematic areas. You may help you in the discussion afterwards or in your statement. One is importance of new urban agenda in achieving the SDG. We received only 38 report of the new urban agenda. I would like to request all the member states to submit the new urban agenda report to UN Habitat for the next coordinated report of the Secretary General. Second is provision of adequate and affordable housing among key social security measures during and after COVID-19. Third is contribution by cities to mitigate climate change, adapt equitably to the effect of the climate change and help environmental degradation. Fourth is the urban displacement and crisis. Fifth is urban prosperity and sustainable finance. And sixth is multi-level governance and localization of the Sustainable Development Goal. These thematic areas are all represented in the program of this forum. During this roundtable session 2 months ago, the high-level meetings on the progress of implementation of the new urban agenda, we have an opportunity to further discuss strategies available to accelerate the implementation of the new urban agenda. It would be important to hear your view, Excellencies, on the following question that I would like to pose to you. Number one, which urban legal framework, urban and territorial planning framework are being developed in your country to guide the transformation of your cities? How does your government intend to facilitate investment to support the transformation of cities and human settlement? My third question to you is that which steps have been taken by your government to empower local and subnational authorities in this process? And last but not least is the fourth question, is that what more could be done to further increase political momentum for the implementation of the new urban agenda to accelerate the achievement of the 168 target of the Sustainable Development Goal? So we are gathered here today to discuss this question, to listen to you. Indeed, the main ambition of the World Urban Forum is to provide a space for exchange of experience among peers, leading to joint identification of transformative urban development measures for a better urban future for all. I'm really looking forward to the debate. I will hear you. I will take note. Your statement will also be shared on the World Urban Forum website, and your recommendation will be captured in our report of the WUF11, which will inform our work planning and fit into the decision-making of our governing bodies, which will be the UN Habitat Assembly, will be in June 2023. Actions are needed now and very critical, Excellencies and dear ministers, and our young generation, there are so many young generation at the back there, I think is looking and watching us now. Thank you very much. Over to you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much. The cry and the call is clear. You have all heard the 6 areas where the Executive Director is hoping to hear your contributions that are important. As she says, the youth are here and watching us. The exchange of your experiences is key to the success of this Ministerial Roundtable. So even though you only have 3 minutes, I hope you will be concise in at least touching on some of these key areas as we move through the process of this meeting. I now want to invite 5 countries to give their contributions in what we're calling the Group A. There are 5 groupings, and we have looked at geographical spacing and the gender balance in order to pull together the key speakers that will be presenting. So, representing Africa, we have the Republic of Malawi, and we have here the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. We have from the Republic of El Salvador, representing Latin America and the Caribbean, the Minister for Housing. Representing Asia Pacific, we have from the Republic of India, virtual representation, the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs. And representing Western Europe, we have the Federal Republic of Germany, the Federal Minister for Housing, Urban Development and Building is here. And finally, for Group A, we have from the Kingdom of Morocco, representing the Arab states, the Director General of Local Government in Ministry of Interior. To begin us off, kindly could I have the first submission of about 3 minutes from the Honourable Minister from the Republic of Malawi. Welcome.
Thank you very much, the Executive Director, ladies and gentlemen. Malawi, as a signatory to the resolutions that were made in Ecuador in 2016, we have done a number of things to address some of the six questions that Executive Director posed before us. To begin with, in the year 2019, in the month of April, we developed the National Urban Policy, which was also approved and is being implemented. The Malawi National Urban Policy seeks to create an enabling environment for the attainment of sustainable urbanization, which is critical in fostering national economic development. Apart from that, the Malawian government has also shown growing political will and commitment by the establishment of the Department of Urban Development within the Ministry of Lands, which I am heading. The function of this department is to provide policy guidance and institutional framework for urban development in the country. With the adoption of the National Urban Policy, the country has had some funding from the World Bank to implement an urban resilient project in the city of Blantyre. The project aims at improving the resilience of the city following a series of disasters the city has experienced, and following the policy adoption, a slum upgrade project was developed with the aim of improving the living conditions of people living in slum areas and their resilience to disasters. The project is expected to be implemented in the 3 cities of Lilongwe, which is the capital city, and it will also be a pilot, the city of Blantyre and Zomba. The policy identifies key challenges that hinder sustainable development, and these include urban poverty, urban sprawl, informal settlement, environmental degradation, weak urban resilience to climate change, disaster risks and shocks. We've gone a little bit further by working with the local authorities to make sure that they are also coming up with their own local policies to make sure that they are also implementing at a local level. Recently, the country of Malawi has also launched what we are calling the secondary cities, which is a major milestone in the urbanization drive, where Malawi has gone further to identify 8 cities that have the potential for development. After a high-level meeting, a task force was put in place to operationalize and monitor the implementation of the secondary cities plan. It was therefore further that it was imperative that the country of Malawi should come to the World Urban Forum today to benchmark from the best, because this room is filled with the best, and we're here to learn. We will learn, and we'll come back to give a report of what we have been able to achieve in the next 2 years. I thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the Honourable Minister from Malawi. May I say, sir, that you were bang on time, 3 minutes. Thank you. Now let me allow the Minister, Honourable Michelle Saul from El Salvador, to take the floor.
Gracias. Buenas tardes a todos.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here with you representing my president and my country. We are facing huge challenges in the area of housing. For decades, these issues were ignored, and therefore the president has come up with the Ministry of Housing. This institution reinforces the development of urban areas that had been ignored for so many years. We're still facing many challenges in the area of housing, but still we have been able to do some progress. One of the initiatives I'd like to mention is to aid families living in high-risk areas. The point is to put certain issues on hold. Without mitigating these problems, we will never progress. We are talking about families that really can hardly make their means end. They have no access to loans, and therefore they receive from us special zero-interest credits. Also, we engage in international cooperation in order to provide housing facilities. We are developing legal framework in order to stimulate investment development in this area. With such initiatives, we can fulfill sustainable development goals, including Goal 11, in order that human habitats can become sustainable, inclusive, and resilient. We are well aware of the fact that we are not a big country, and therefore we want to come up with housing settlements up in the mountains so that we can use the land we have at our disposal so that they can become self-sufficient. Apart from that, we recycle rainwater. With this scheme, we can help areas that don't have enough access to water. In such a way, we contribute to urban development. Starting from 2019, the world has been witnessing our country in a positive way, looking at the initiatives that the president has been implementing. All of it is aimed at creating well-being of our inhabitants, at boosting economy, and the whole country. In terms of housing, UN Habitat plays a fundamental role in terms of changing the living conditions for such families. For that, we need to meet 4 areas: to legalize land use, new credits, subsidies, and certain actions at the ministerial level. In fact, we not only want to focus on these government-led activities, we also want to incentivize private investors so that they also invest in such social projects. Precisely that is the focus of the ministry, so that such projects can be stepped up. We believe that such changes can be introduced by providing aid from the social fund for housing and buildings. As I mentioned before, we are planning to launch zero-interest loans up to $30,000. That's critical because we want to provide shelter to more and more people, or even up to $40,000. That could be the cap for such zero-interest credits, so that we can mitigate the problem of lacking housing. And I know that we need to be... May I just end my statement? Yes, of course, please. Well, we are still facing many challenges, but we know that there are so many friends who are trying to help out. All children should be able to see rain looking there from safe houses and not spending the night in the street. Thank you.
For the contribution from the Republic of El Salvador. We move to a virtual presentation by the Republic of India, please. This is the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs. Is that available? The Republic of India will be presenting virtually. The audio team? No problem. I will now move on then to the Federal Republic of Germany, the Federal Minister for Housing, Urban Development and Building. Your presentation, sir. I'm sorry, your presentation, ma'am. Germany? No? Okay. Then finally for the Group A, we have the Kingdom of Morocco representing the Arab states. This is the Director General of Local Government in the Ministry of Interior. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Merci de me donner la parole. Donc, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chère audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to that round table. Excellencies, it's my honor to be part of that meeting. Let me use this opportunity to commit Morocco to honor all the commitments that we have taken up when it comes to the regional initiatives and the new Urban Agenda 2030. As well as the Paris Agreement to mitigate the risk of natural disasters. This and other strategies. Now, the Kingdom of Morocco has implemented a number of strategic programs to face the challenges related to sustainable development. We have also analyzed how the land should be properly distributed. This is pursuant to the new constitution from the year 2019, the so-called participatory democratic model that we apply. We also believe in the principle of certain discretion of regions. Thanks to such a setup, local populations can take part in shaping processes in the field. And to do that, we have different participatory mechanisms in place. I could mention here a number of such initiatives to stimulate participation of the population. Consequently, we are in the position to boost the community life. Now, when it comes comes to the new Urban Agenda 2030, this is related to our midterm and long-term climate policy. As part of delivering our commitments, Morocco has developed the first voluntary report regarding the implementation of the agenda and the participation process. This has given a new impetus to our activities. It all started in 2021. That's the date when we signed proper documents, including financial expertise reports between the central governments and regions of Morocco. We are using also international funds for that end. I could also mention a special program dedicated to integration and support of local governments. Now, the members of the parliament as well as local governments have a big role to play here in terms of sustainable development. And this has been properly recognized. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. From the Kingdom of Morocco, that's the Director General of Local Government in Ministry of Interior. Some of the points that we've captured here from Malawi, El Salvador, and Morocco. We've heard Malawi talk about how in 2019 they launched the National Urban Policy and how they're working on a slum upgrade project in 3 of the cities. We've heard from El Salvador the development of the Ministry of Housing, taking into cognizance that this is a key function and needed to stand alone. We take into consideration their contribution about how they're working on improved interest rates for loans that their citizens might need. And of course, they touched on use of new spaces up in the mountains, making sure that they spread themselves out. In Morocco, we listened to a space on devolution, the importance of it and their purpose to ensure that this is achieved actively across Morocco. And of course, their policies and plans around mitigating national disasters. Allow me now to introduce then the second group. The second group represents the following countries: the Republic of Azerbaijan, the Republic of Cameroon, the Republic of Argentina, Malaysia, the United States of America, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the Republic of Brazil. Allow me now to introduce the chair of the State Committee on Urban Planning and Architecture of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Honourable, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear Madam Executive Director of UN Habitat, dear Mr. President, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen. We are grateful to the UN Habitat team and to the government of Poland for the high-level organization and hospitality we enjoy in the beautiful city of Katowice. This year we mark the 30th anniversary of Azerbaijan's membership in the United Nations. This landmark event was celebrated jointly with our UN partners in the liberated city of Shusha, the cultural capital of Azerbaijan, with the attainment of the SDGs and post-crisis reconstruction and rehabilitation being the key topics. Participants of the event deliberated on the progress made by Azerbaijan in achieving SDGs as well as on the efforts aimed at bringing life back to liberated territories. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the new Urban Agenda as the main globally agreed documents guiding sustainable urbanization are of particular importance for my country. Azerbaijan is among few countries in the world that has submitted 3 voluntary national reviews on the SDGs implementation, scoring 72.4 out of 100 points possible on the SDGs Achievement Index. Azerbaijan ranks 55th in the 2021 Sustainable Development Report with the best result in the region. Today, urban population constitutes more than half of the population of Azerbaijan. In recent years, we have adopted respective legislative acts and implemented inclusive and effective policies aimed at strengthening urban governance, ensuring predictability and coherence in the urban development plans, eradicating poverty, enhancing the social protection, improving the transport, ecological and water management systems, providing support for low-income families and other vulnerable social groups. Sustainable urban development has gained even more valuable following the patriotic war of 2020, when Azerbaijan liberated its territories from 3 decades-long occupation. As a result of the 44 days patriotic war, Azerbaijan has liberated 10,000 square kilometers of its internationally recognized territories from the almost 30-year-long occupation. More than 300 cities and villages, cultural and religious sites have been fully destroyed as a result of urbicide, culturecide, and ecocide during the occupation. Besides the vast waste contamination of the conflict-affected territories by landmines and absence of the accurate minefield maps remain major obstacle for the effective urban planning, rehabilitation and reconstruction work and the return of hundreds of thousands IDPs to their homeland. Despite these challenges, Azerbaijan has started and already achieved tangible results in rebuilding towns from the scratch by applying the modern urban planning and utilizing the concepts of smart cities, smart village, green energy and net zero emission zone, restoring essential services through the most advanced technologies, building new roads, tunnels, railways and 3 new international airports, including the city of Izuli, which is already fully operational. I would like to underline that we consider the SDGs to be one of the key engines of our overall reconstruction and rehabilitation effort, with special emphasis on the SDG 11. We want the cities we are building to be inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. I believe our ongoing reconstruction and rehabilitation effort explains the importance we attach to our partnership with UN Habitat. The recent visit of Madame Maimouna to Azerbaijan opened a new chapter in our cooperation. We highly appreciate the significant role the agency plays in furthering the implementation of the new urban agenda in Azerbaijan. The discussion on the organization of the annual National Urban Forum this year in the city of Agdam is in its final stages. We aim to organize it in this October, and I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to invite all of you to attend this forum, which we hope to offer excellent opportunity to discuss a wide range of issues related to post-conflict reconstruction processes. Azerbaijan also supports UN Habitat's efforts globally.
May I draw your attention to the time, sir? Honourable Minister.
Yes, thank you. It is in the spirit of this support my government has allocated 1.5 million USD to UN Habitat as a voluntary contribution. Madam Maimouna, we are very grateful for your inspirational speech yesterday and today as well. And your words, time for action is now, are very much in line with our approach as we continuously prioritize speed and quality in our daily work.
Thank you, sir.
Actually,
may I stop you there, sir? Is it almost?
Let me finish this sentence only. I just want to underline that this words, time for action is now, is perfect motto for our partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The Chair of the State Committee on Urban Planning, Architecture in the Republic of Azerbaijan. Thank you, sir. We now have from the Cameroon, the Minister of Urban Development and Housing. Hello, Madame. You've just arrived. I will skip you and move to a few others so that you can just settle down. I will then move to the Republic of Argentina, the Minister of Territorial Development and Habitat. Welcome.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Este foro.
Hello, everyone. Well, we are discussing a lot of topics at this forum. In Argentina, we are representing the ministry which deals with housing, as well as regeneration of land. In Argentina, we believe that there should be no differences between social housing and regular housing. Social housing is developed to stigmatize poverty, and a house is a right, and such a right should be guaranteed by governments. Territorial development is very important for us. We created this ministry because we want to build 50,000 new apartments. We received funds for that from the government because we are not receiving any funds from the private sources. So in order to develop housing, we need to take care of healthcare and education. COVID-19 pandemic has revealed that these are fundamental issues for urban development. So unless there is equal distribution of goods, we won't be able to develop. So we cannot have development if we have discrepancies and gaps. Also, jobs are important. There's no housing without jobs, so we need to create jobs to then create housing. That is why we want to implement the agenda. As has been mentioned before, we also need to talk about outcomes. In Argentina, we say that something cannot be done until you do it. So development has to be collective. Each government has to work together with local governments. It's the government and public policies that should impact the development to create equity. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.
Very much. I'd like to interrupt the flow for a moment and allow the Republic of India to come on, as they are, I'm informed that they are now ready to go online. Is that happening? Okay. No, it's not happening. All right. The Republic of Malaysia. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Local Government. Honourable Minister, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, His Excellency, Executive Director of UN Habitat, Honourable Ministers, excellent distinguished guests. Malaysia is on track in creating a sustainable environment. Just like many other nations, we are equally committed in implementing new urban agenda. Malaysia is an urban nation with 25.7 million people living in cities and urban areas. It is in fact the most urbanized cities in Southeast Asia. To ensure sustainability and inclusive urbanization, Malaysia has introduced and implemented several environmental and social policies that transcends from national, subnational, and also to local. They include the National Urbanization Policy, which was formulated in 2006, that serve and help local government to set the right direction for urban planning and growth in Malaysia. We envision a livable Malaysia, a nation that progresses economically while allowing the environment to thrive and Malaysians to prosper. In Malaysia, we have 155 local authorities that plan, manage, and provide urban services to 320 cities. A Malaysia SDG Cities Roadmap is being prepared by each local authority to strengthen and accelerate the achievement of their SDGs, improving quality of life and driving positive impacts socially, economically, environmentally to local communities. Tackling urban poverty is a never-ending struggle. Efforts to address urban poverty in Malaysia goes beyond economic development. It includes elevating the well-being and quality of life of the lower income group, access to education, health, public transportation, better living standards, and better income among the key dimensions of Malaysia Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index. Educate and affordable housing program have also been high on our agenda. Our National Affordable Housing Policy, for example, will see the creation of 500,000 affordable houses by 2025. The other thing is digitalization as a game changer. While technology will continue to change our life, Malaysia National Digital Network Program was put in place to ensure digital connectivity for everyone. To achieve, on the other also high on my ministry agenda is circular economy and decarbonization. We must manage waste holistically, create green markets, encourage renewable energy mix. To achieve this agenda, Malaysia is in the midst of forming national circular economy, where all stakeholder industry players, environmental organizations, and academia will work hand in hand to achieve this and to realize this agenda. In short, Madam Moderator, I would like to thank you again for giving me the space and time to share, though I did not get the chance to complete all, but I look forward for a wider network of collaboration as we work towards creating sustainable city around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable Minister, and thank you for being time conscious. Your comments are noted. We will do a recap just before we go into the next group, Group C. But for now, we have a pre-recorded message from the United States of America, the head of the delegation. Please, could we play that?
Distinguished delegates and representatives, as the head of the U.S. delegation and on behalf of President Joe Biden, I'm honored to participate in the 11th World Urban Forum. Our gathering this week could not come at a more critical juncture for our communities, nations, and indeed the world. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed clear vulnerabilities in our global infrastructure. We have collectively experienced unfathomable devastation and loss. We are meeting today in the shadow of Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war against Ukraine. Russia's war has displaced more than 12 million people, devastated civilian infrastructure, destroyed nature and biodiversity, and created toxic military waste that is poisoning air, soil, and water resources. Beyond Ukraine's borders, Russia's war has triggered a global food security, energy, and supply chain crisis that will fall most heavily on the most vulnerable. It has created a wave of refugees in neighboring countries' urban areas. Cities throughout Europe and the world stepped up to serve these people. I would like to thank our host, the city of Katowice, and the government and people of Poland for welcoming refugees into your homes and your hearts. We thank you for your steadfast support of Ukraine's heroes, who are defending not only their own communities, but upholding the principles of sovereignty and democratic freedom everywhere. When this war ends, we must all work together to help Ukraine rebuild stronger, healthier, and greener. As we gather today, we must acknowledge that the world is off track to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. COVID, conflict, and the climate crisis have set back progress towards Sustainable Development Goal 11, making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable for all. The United States is committed to building sustainable communities at home and supporting the full implementation of the SDGs around the world. My agency, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, plays a critical role in advancing the Biden-Harris administration's agenda. It is our mission to ensure that every American has a stable, safe, and accessible home. Our department supports underserved communities and promotes equitable community development for all people. We assist communities in their recovery from disasters, and we support urban resilience, affordability, and sustainability. The path to successfully combating the climate crisis runs straight through our municipalities. City residents are particularly vulnerable to the impact of extreme weather and excess heat, both of which are exacerbated by pollution. Cities must use innovative solutions to create pathways to greater urban resilience and make a meaningful shift to energy-efficient systems. We have an opportunity to curb air pollution and global warming through thoughtful design. How we build cities and how we encourage the use of public space can allow us to provide spaces that are safer, more accessible, and more inclusive. We must ensure that human rights, gender equity, the rights of the disabled, and democratic governance are at the center of our work to build sustainable cities and communities. While some governments press for public surveillance and censorship, the United States stands with the Global Declaration of Mayors for Democracy in affirming that cities must be centers of enfranchisement and democratic development. We must be places that respect diverse histories, economies, and cultural heritage, and they must protect the human rights and dignity of all citizens. These are the essential preconditions that drive innovation, economic prosperity, and true sustainability.
I'm going to ask
As we
the
turn
audio
now
team
to our common mission
to pay attention. We've gone to the 5-minute mark.
May this World Urban Forum deliver on the promise of building resilient, sustainable, and inclusive communities for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the head of the delegation, who is the mayor of Eastern Region. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. أصحاب المعالي السيدات والسادة السلام عليكم. منذ عام 2016 شرعت المملكة العربية السعودية في تبني رؤية وطنية طموحة تستهدف.
Ladies and gentlemen, starting from the year 2016, Saudi Arabia has been making attempts to come up with a development plan and to respond to all the changes in order to adapt and come up with a more sustainable future. Therefore, we have tried to come up with a strategy to be properly prepared and to meet the challenges of the future. For this reason, we've implemented a host of programs. Actually, the realization time is planned until 2030. All of them aim at improving the life quality in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We are very much interested in urban topics, including sustainable development of urban areas. There is the program 2020-2030 in place, and a number of initiatives as well as best practices. I'd like to mention 3 cities where we wish to improve the quality of life so that they can be qualified among the list of 100 cities with the best quality of life in the world. This involves reconstruction of certain areas. Moreover, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is working on an international plan. We want to make our cities sustainable, well-developed, and to provide better future for our citizens. And we have some success stories regarding the improvement of affordable housing. And for that end, we've been driving certain initiatives taken up by various cities and towns. This also includes coming up with greeneries, with gardens, providing certain entertainment areas for citizens. Here I could mention a number of places that we have been able to come up with, some venues. And we have high performance in terms of reconstruction of housing. With these solutions, we were able to drive our development, including building something called the Green Middle East. This includes many natural solutions greeneries, as a result of which we can curb the CO2 emissions. We are also quite experienced when it comes to the involvement of companies in reconstructing housing. Here we can share some good results regarding different urban projects that translated into better cooperation and improvement of life quality for residents. Together with the private sector, we've been able to come up with many solutions regarding housing, so that the housing is really following the needs.
Attention.
Okay. Shukran jazilan. Sorry for getting more time.
No problem.
Sorry for taking more time.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And finally, in the sequence of Group B, we have from the Latin America and Caribbean region, we have the Republic of Brazil. Welcome, Honourable. This is the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Ministry of Regional Development.
Thank you. Dear Madam Chair, dear ministers and other authorities present here today, Brazil has since 2000 more than 20 of its population living in more than 80% of its population living in cities diversely distributed along our territory. About half of the Brazilian population lives in less than 3% of the municipalities, and almost 70% of the municipalities have less than 20,000 inhabitants. The Brazilian government, through the Ministry of Regional Development, formulates and coordinates strategies that impact urban infrastructure and the sustainable development of profoundly diverse cities spread across a territory of continental dimensions. These strategies involve sectors with a decisive influence on people's quality of life in areas such as urban mobility, sanitation, housing, civil defense, and water security. The effects of COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of strengthening investments in urban infrastructure and essential public service. The sanitation policy, approved in 2020, aims to universalize basic sanitation by 2033, in line with the Sustainable Urban Development Agenda. In the realm of housing, we have been working to reduce the deficit in a broad way, promoting access to decent housing and stimulating housing production, land tenure regularization, housing improvement, and social leasing. We started updating the National Housing Plan with the inclusion of a chapter focused on sustainability. In turn, the National Urban Mobility Policy seeks to ensure universal accessibility, integrates modes, and encourage the use of collective public transport and active modes incorporating sustainable technologies. We started the construction of the National Policy for Urban Development by structuring through a participatory process the Sustainable Urban Development Goals and the Brazilian Charters for Smart Cities. This process sought to recognize local specificities and regional disparities in line with the National Policy for Regional Development. The implementation of this transformative public policy requires a magnitude of investment that exceeds the capacity of public budgets. Private resources are also needed in partnership that expand investment opportunities and maximize their benefits. In view of these scenarios, in 2021, we launched the Green Investment Strategy for Regional Development, which aims to incorporate the sustainable criteria into infrastructure projects, reducing risks, strengthening governance, and expanding conditions to attract new investments through the elaboration of 5 frameworks ESG, aligned with the best international practice. I am pleased to say that the principles and objectives that emanate from the new urban agenda have been incorporated by my country in its regulatory perspective and in the formulation of national sectorial plans and policies. Therefore, Brazil, which took an active part in the formulation of the new urban agenda on the occasion of Habitat Trace Conference, is ready to contribute internationally to its dimensions, disseminations, and implementations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the contribution by the Deputy Executive Secretary in the Ministry of Regional Development in Brazil. Thank you, ma'am. Allow me now to introduce from Cameroon the Honourable Minister in charge of Urban Development and Housing. Welcome, Madame.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Je voudrais avant toute chose...
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So right now we are moving on to the next session and we are being squeezed like lemons, you could say. Anyway, let me go back to the topic of housing. And here we see eye to eye the issue of housing and the fact that we have a huge deficit of housing units. In Cameroon, 2 million people have no shelter. We only have 100,000 new flats that we can offer. Therefore, sustainable development goals are especially relevant because we have a huge loophole to be bridged. This results in a certain stratification of social groups in the very heart of the city. 70% of our inhabitants live in cities. The president of our republic actually forced the government to really do anything they can to improve the situation of housing so that as many citizens of Cameroon have access to decent housing as possible. For this reason, proper institutions have been set up. Also, loans for purchasing property. And we also have a company that produces construction materials locally. That allows us to drive down the production costs. We are also trying to stimulate the private industry, improve the legislative framework, diversify our funding sources, and include our citizens in the process. That's the 4P strategy. That's how we call it. A big part of our society has no proper resources to be able to purchase their own house. Now, mayors provide land for disposal, and we organize roundtables so that we all sit at the same table and discuss how to provide long-term funding for housing initiatives. City mayors must be included in the generation of new apartments. The government has decided to really deal with this critical issue. All proper funding institutions should also cater to this initiative to provide more access to housing. Therefore, we provide support both for the national and local governments. This is about human dignity. If we do nothing, there will always be something called social segregation, and we will never achieve this sustainable agenda. Thank you.
That draws to a close the Group B presentations. We captured, you all captured very many aspects of what your governments and through you, your ministries are doing into assisting this particular agenda under discussion. Azerbaijan talked to us about IDPs and how they have reclaimed over 100,000. They talked about landmines and how they've handled that situation, liberating more land for occupancy. They told us about how they've developed an urban policy framework, which they are working very aggressively towards, and they've invited us to their country which I assume members will be keen to come. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. In Argentina, they shared with us some aspects of the gaps that they see in terms of, health and job creation. They talked about the need to develop from the national and the local and not leave out local because it doesn't work. They talked about the gaps that they also see in terms of funding, not getting enough funding from the private sector, and where they get their funding is limited. So these, I'm sure, are cross-cutting issues across the different countries. Malaysia, they talked to us about how they've incorporated new social policies, how they have 155 local authorities, and they're working to shape